Demographics is destiny. Within 4 years, Africa will have over 100 cities with more than 1 million inhabitants. By mid-century, the continent's total population will eclipse 2.4 billion. Africa will steadily displace the economies of East Asia as the leading destination for offshore manufacturing. Production and consumption will grow, while new value chains will be created in the process. Even now, foreign investors are constructing ports, railways, and highways across the continent. As a result, 3 new trans-Mediterranean corridors are emerging that will glue Europe and Africa. However, the configurations will have to traverse North Africa's gatekeepers, giving Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, and Egypt the leverage to dictate terms. In this new scramble for Africa, it is as much about resources as control over corridors, for control is the source of strategic power. I'm your host Shirvan and welcome to Caspian Report. This episode is sponsored by Skillshare, an online learning community that helps develop your skills using online classes. There are thousands of topics to choose from, including video and film, productivity, marketing, etc. Personally, I've taken a class on creative writing by Daniel Jose Older, who is a New York Times best-selling author. It's only 40 minutes, but it has helped me to get my writing to be on point. So, while the lockdown measures will likely remain in place throughout much of 2021, why not spend your time at home in a meaningful way? Skillshare costs less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. That's quite affordable, but to make things even more interesting, the first 1,000 people to use the link in the description will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium membership so you can explore your creativity. Over the past decade, an extraordinary wave of demographic and economic growth has swept across Africa. By 2050, urbanization will change the face of the continent. Metropolitan centers will be larger, more numerous, and better connected with the wider world. The cities will produce and consume more. Imports and exports will surge to meet demands. The political landscape is already adjusting to the idea. In 2018, the members of the African Union founded the African Continental Free Trade Area, bringing additional value to trans-African trade and commerce. Spanning 55 economies and a total GDP of $2.5 trillion, the African Continental Free Trade Area is now the world's largest trading bloc. In addition to promoting internal trade, new infrastructure, and the removal of import and export duties, the bloc also seeks to enhance the pre-existing value chains. Currently, the European Union holds a dominant position as Africa's largest trading partner. To put things into perspective, 36% of all African exports are bound for Europe, while the second largest partner, China, is the destination of only 9% of all African exports. At the same time, Europe is the source of 33% of imports, a stark contrast to the 5% of goods imported from China. In other words, in face of the growing competition in Africa, Europe remains the most important trading partner, and both Africa and Europe stand to gain a great deal from further cooperation. In a policy report by Germany's Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, Professor Michael Tanchum highlights a series of Africa to Europe trade corridors that will reshape the interaction between the two continents. These corridors follow the trajectory of the Trans-African Highway system but are expanded by railways, ports, and possibly industrial zones. They are necessary for Africa's growth. More generally, they are necessary to improve commercial connectivity to consumer markets and a larger industrial manufacturing base. Trade corridors emerge in places where large investments in port, rail, and road infrastructure are coupled with an industrial base anchored in a manufacturing value chain. There are 3 such configurations going from Europe to Africa and vice versa. Control over these configurations will decide the geopolitical framework for years to come. Nowhere is this more evident than in North Africa, where the Trans-African highways connect with the Trans-Mediterranean nodes of Rabat, Algiers, Tunis, Tripoli, and Cairo. With a triple heritage of Arab, African, and Mediterranean culture, the North African nations stand as the gatekeepers of Africa. The collective pivot of the African corridors hinges entirely on the northern portion of the continent. Such a position endows Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, and Egypt with a once-in-a-generation opportunity to cultivate partnerships on favorable terms and in doing so remake North Africa in their image. To the west, Morocco hosts the Atlantic Corridor. Part of Rabat's allure stems from the considerable investments in transportation infrastructure and industrial base. For instance, the French-financed El Borak high-speed railway links the commercial heart of Casablanca to the industrial port city of Tangier. Here, the recently completed Tangier Med Port reigns supreme as the Mediterranean's largest port. Goods and commodities coming as far afield as Senegal are exported from the Tangier Med Port. From Tangier, cargo vessels carry the goods a mere 45 kilometers north to Algeciras, the largest port in Spain and a vital point of entry into the European market. From the Spanish port, the corridors travel north into France and Germany. Interestingly, in 2019, a major French automobile conglomerate opened a manufacturing plant north of Rabat to make use of the high-speed railway to Tangier Med Port. Since then, Morocco has emerged as Africa's leading auto manufacturer. It is this type of smart infrastructure investments that will determine the success of the Atlantic Corridor. France has been the leading investor in Morocco, but a stream of newfound private and public investors has flocked to the country in recent years, raising the strategic bar. There is now competition from Russian, Chinese, Turkish, and Arab Gulf patrons in addition to the French. Each investor is making more grand promises than the other. For instance, China is building a $10 billion high-tech industrial zone known as Tangier Tech City. Russia is constructing new oil refineries, and there is a plan to expand the high-speed rail infrastructure as far as La Guira by 2040. For its proximity and available infrastructure, Morocco is often dubbed as the door to the Sahara. However, the greatest challenge in the Atlantic Corridor is the dispute in Western Sahara. The town of La Guira, for instance, currently lies in ruins and separatist forces control the nearby areas. So, to realize its commercial corridor, Rabat needs to restore its sovereignty over the occupied territories. In this context, Washington's recent recognition of Moroccan sovereignty in Western Sahara is a crucial turning point. It also explains the recent clashes in Western Sahara. Further east lies the Maghreb Corridor. Beginning at the terminus of Scandinavian-Mediterranean Corridor in Taranto, Italy, the Maghreb Corridor extends southward through Malta and into Tunisia. From there, the corridor links by highway to Algiers before traversing the Sahara and reaching as far south as Lagos, Nigeria. Alternatively, the Tunisian corridor flows along the coast, crossing into Libya, and then continuing more than 2,300 kilometers south to N'Djamena, Chad. Facilitating the flow of trade are several key developments. In July 2020, the Turkey-Italy-Tunisia multi-module transportation route began operating across the center of the Mediterranean. As a symbiosis of Turkish and Italian interests, the maritime arc connects the Maghreb region to southern Europe and the Black Sea. The corridor's central hub is Italy's deep-sea port of Taranto, which recently underwent a $480 million renovation and is operated by a Turkish firm. Meanwhile, Chinese firms are commissioned to construct a new commercial port in Chechel, Algeria, and the African Union and the African Development Bank are currently considering further enhancing the Trans-African Highway network to increase the operability of the land routes. Italian and Chinese firms stand a good chance to win additional contracts in Algeria, while Turkish firms are likely to gain commissions in Libya. What makes the Maghreb Corridor stand out is its versatility. It involves a number of major powers, and it's the only corridor going into Nigeria, a nation that will double its population to 400 million by 2050. Yet here too, the Maghreb Corridor faces numerous complications. While Tunisia stands as a beacon of stability, the corridor needs both Algeria and Libya to work. Libya is the real problem. The ongoing conflict there has created a degree of unpredictability which inhibits business. However, change is within scope. The arrival of Turkish troops in Libya and their support for the international government in Tripoli has guaranteed Ankara a strategic beachhead in the Maghreb. This then explains the strategic value of Libya and the numerous foreign interventions there. Interestingly, 1 month after the Turkish intervention, Algerian and Turkish lawmakers signed a trade agreement pledging to raise bilateral trade to $5 billion. At the same time, China and Algeria have agreed to deepen the latter's participation in the Belt and Road Initiative. So while the immediate road ahead is difficult, unstoppable long-term plans are in the making. To the east, Egypt, with its colossal population and ample energy supplies, stands as the final Africa to Europe corridor. Straddling the Mediterranean, the Egyptian corridor connects Central and East Europe through the Greek port city of Piraeus to the economies of East Africa. Its total length is more than 10,000 kilometers, measured from Cairo, Egypt to Cape Town, South Africa. To make the corridor commercially viable, Cairo is looking to expand its total container capacity. Beijing and Moscow have rushed to meet demand. Chinese and Russian firms are expanding the existing ports at Damietta, East Said Port, and a new container terminal is planned for construction at Abu Qir. Russia and China's close relationship with the Egyptian government serves a dual purpose, as a strategic and commercial foothold in the region. Also notable are the Emirati plans to expand Egypt's ports by the Red Sea. Port Shokna, for instance, is currently undergoing a $520 million expansion. The main complication in the Egyptian corridor sits outside of Egypt. Though Cairo is making impressive steps to expand its container capacity, East Africa's existing infrastructure is insufficient to form a commercial corridor. For example, the ports in Mogadishu and Mombasa can handle the cargo, but they are poorly connected with the booming inland economies of East Africa. Hence, the African segment of the corridor must foremost improve and expand its rail and road connectivity. Funded by Kuwaiti subsidiaries, modern rail infrastructure is currently under development to enhance transportation connectivity between Egypt and Sudan, but similar investments are necessary in the south of the continent. This will not be easy. In Ethiopia, through which the Cairo-Cape Town highway passes, there is an ethnic insurgency by the Tigray region. Also, Egypt is in a stalemate with Ethiopia over the latter's Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam on the Blue Nile River. These conflicts need resolution if the Egyptian corridor is to be viable. That said, it's also possible that Egypt avoids Ethiopia entirely by steering the commercial corridor towards the White Nile countries with whom it has better relations. This is very much a process in the making. All in all, Africa is changing, some areas more rapidly than others, depending on factors such as demographics, economics, politics, and geography. Places that were previously neglected are now dominating geopolitical agendas. There is a window of opportunity in Africa, especially in the north. Though Europe remains Africa's largest trading partner, Russian, Chinese, Turkish, and Arab Gulf patrons are filling the geopolitical vacuum. Still, the power brokers may not want to celebrate too early. As is often the case elsewhere, every successful venture only buys an admission ticket to a more difficult problem. The scramble for Africa will play out for years to come. I've been your host Shirvan from CaspianReport. If you want to learn more about this topic, check out the full article by the Austrian Institute for European and Security Policy, which is a think tank that specializes in systematic geopolitical analysis. Thank you for your time, and Sorol.